Plot twist, I am in a reading slump. And not just books. Every podcast I try to listen to, every audiobook I try to read, every book I try to read, every album I try to listen to, I hate everything. I'm hating everything right now. So, what better time to pull open our trusty dusty AO3? I wanted to bind some fan fiction. There's an author on AO3, and their username is PETA POV, and they've written all 3 of the Hunger Games books from PETA's perspective. It's amazing. They're amazing. I love them so much. I ran through all of them on my Kindle very quickly a couple of years ago, and I binded the first one. This is my mimic of book 1. Very fun. And I wanted to do that with the rest of the books. So we're going to go through, the second one is called The Pearl, and the third one is called The Dandelion in Spring. So a lot of my resources come from a fantastic Facebook page that I'm a part of. I feel like the bookbinding community is super welcoming, and everybody encourages sharing resources and sharing works, and it's just a lovely spot to be in. A lot of the people over there have helped out with plenty of tutorials for people to follow. The bookbinding subreddit is really great too for questions and stuff. Let's go through my process of how I like to do this. This isn't necessarily a tutorial on how to bind books. It's just me having fun and taking you along for the ride, okay? So, my God, I just got attacked by Howl. That scared me so bad. 1 second, you guys. I think we're safe now. Oh my God. I just wanted a light so that you could see my face when I film. Is that too much to ask without having hermit crabs fall on top of me? Apparently. Okay, we're pausing for real this time. I'm doing all 3 at once in case I want to redo the first one. When you're binding fan fiction, if you want the pages to lay nice and flat, like to be floppy, like these are pretty. Okay, this isn't the best example, but they're floppy-ish compared to this, not floppy. And that's because I used regular printer paper for this one. So the grain of the paper is going the incorrect way. I love the third one in the series so much because this author explores what PETA's imprisonment looked like when he was hijacked by the Capitol in book 3. And, you don't see that perspective in Mockingjay, and they do such a great job at exploring what that potentially looked like, and I just love fan fiction, okay? When I go through these, I really like to match the original work as much as I can, at least for this series. I made the covers look the same, I use the same fonts for the chapter headings and stuff like that. And I have a little AO3 down here. And then even on the insides, I like to find some fan art if I want to put some in there. This is such beautiful fan art by Flo Manoa. And I even try to match the chapter headings, the spacers in between, time jumps. It's a lot of fun for me to match all of that material. Yeah, and I made the little cover be the bread that's on fire because I thought it would be fun. So it'll be fun to go through these 2 and see what I want the covers to be. I think I'll just follow the same pattern of the second rewritten one is called The Pearl, so I'll probably put him holding the pearl on the front maybe. And then for Mockingjay, it's The Dandelion in Spring, so I'll probably put a dandelion on the cover, and maybe the wind will be blowing the seeds along with the target that's broken in the back. I don't know if I'll match the colors because I might want to do more of an orangish color for Catching Fire for the pearl, and then I don't know what color I want to do for the last one. But we will find out soon enough when I get there. I'm going to format the text block first and then start printing it. And after I build all of the text blocks, I will then measure them to see what size my spine has to be, because I can't really start the spine until I know how thick it is. what it looks like. All of the pages are out of order because you fold it into signatures, so don't worry about that. But we got some fan art here that I love by Rosie Thorns. We have the text. We have some info about the book. We have this thing. I don't know what it is. It's just in the original, so I put it in here too. And now we're gonna start printing the second book, and while it prints, I'll be formatting the third book. I order all of my paper from Church Paper, and you can purchase like band binding paper specifically, and it's just double the size. So instead of 8.5 by 11, it's the 11 by 17, and then they chop it down the middle, which makes it so the grain is going the right direction for bookbinding. So I'm gonna start printing. Hopefully it prints perfect the first try, because there is nothing worse than printing a fanfic and then you realize you like collated it wrong or you did the signatures the wrong size. So I hope it works. I like this color because it's not completely white. It's just nice. So you can see how floppy it is? Way nicer. Way nicer. Damn, this makes me want to redo the first one too. We'll see. We'll see how far I print. Let's see if I can connect my laptop to my printer because, dude, propaganda I don't fall for is printers. I hate them. I think they're evil. They always run out of ink. Ink is way too expensive. And most of the time I can't even connect my laptop or my iPad to my printer. It should be easy. We live in a world full of technology. It's connected to the goddamn Wi-Fi. See this? Cord to the printer. I hate printers. We're adding an iPad into the equation. Print, please, please. The love affair between my iPad and my printer continues. It's a really loud printer, so I'm gonna get started on typeset number 3, and hopefully this prints successfully. So remember earlier how I said I didn't want to print the whole thing wrong? I printed the whole thing wrong. I'm gonna try it again. And this time I'm gonna be more purposeful with what I do. But I did start typesetting book 3, so I was trying some different settings and I accidentally mirrored the whole thing. All of the words are backwards. The settings that I need, I can't do on my iPad, so now we're trying a third device to print from. I hope it works. This is the setting we needed. Flip on short edge. This should fix everything else. Let's print just our first signature this time and see if it works. We have our first signature, hopefully printed correctly this time. I can't believe I made the foolish mistake that I did, even after I told myself not to make the foolish mistake on camera. Anyway, what we want to see is that if we fold our first signature in half, if the pages will be in the correct order. By Jove, I think we've done it. Oh my goodness, look at that. Page 1, page 2, page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Oh, by golly, we did it. It only took me an hour of printing for 12 pages of paper. Let's keep going. I got it printed, you guys. Now I just have to go through and separate it into signatures, and then you'll see what I do next. I have successfully printed all 3 books. I have all of them separated by signature, and now I just have to cut them all in half. I have a little marker for 5.5 inches because that's half of 11. And now I'm gonna cut approximately 400 pieces of paper in half, one by one. So I did the first one and I was like, oh, I'll get started on the second one, but I only have one DIY homemade book clamp, so I can only do one at a time when it comes to the gluing process. So I figured now would be a good time to yap while I wait for my book to dry. This is the first one. This is The Boy and His Bread, which I did decide to redo. I think fan fiction is amazing. I have a long history with fan fiction. I think a lot of people do. You know, I used to read a lot of fan fiction on Wattpad growing up, and it took me a while to branch out to AO3 because it was kind of felt intimidating to me. AO3 is Archive of Our Own. It's the biggest fan fiction database out there. It's where a lot of people write fanfics. They can tag them, you know, by genre, by content, by trope, by trigger warnings. It's a great website. It's fantastic. The other one that people frequently use is fanfiction.net. That one is kind of a beast. I've read a couple Twilight fanfictions on there that I really loved, which I have binded those as well, but I'll go get it. Some of the other fanfiction that I've binded, I have gifted away to people. Like, I trade fanfiction sometimes with online friends. Yeah, believe it or not, I have friends online. And then my sister, I've given a single fanfiction to. This is Cullen's Fine Goods by Heather Mythic Bitch Chandler from fanfiction.net. It's a contemporary romance featuring Bella and Edward. I used, again, the same font. You know, this is the same image from the original Twilight books. Yeah, same. This is a good one. When I first read this fanfiction, it was being published and it was not finished. They were updating weekly and then they went on hiatus for like multiple years. And when I started getting into fanfiction binding, I was like, oh my god, I have to find this fanfiction. And I was searching it, this really backward searching. I was like, Twilight fanfiction where they work in a convenience store. It was so hard to find, but I did find it again because I couldn't remember the title. That's why it was hard to find. Much to my joy, they had finished it. They'd gone back to writing and they had finished it. So I was able to bind all of it. I've been rewarded for my patience for the first time in my life. I tend to prefer paperbacks because they're easier. I'm really not great with building the hardcover bookcases. I just feel like they're super stiff when I make it. And maybe if I actually read the book, that would help. But I just feel like, I don't know, you guys. The story is really, really great. It follows Bella as she works at the Cullen's Fine Goods, which is like an emporium full of a whole bunch of different products that she works with the Cullens. And then Edward transfers over and becomes her boss. So there's like a no fraternization policy, but they are falling in love. It's really great. I loved it. I really enjoy modern AUs or alternate universes. I have obviously this one that we've showcased before, and now we're recreating it with better paper and with the follow-up 2 more books after it. But I like paperbacks because they're easier to do, they're faster to do, and I just always prefer a paperback over a hardcover. And maybe I will reread this one and see if that relaxes it at all, because it really might help. And then this one was one of the first ones I made. This was before I had purchased what's called book cloth, which is the type of fabric that goes on top of books. This one has book cloth. This one does not have book cloth. This is just like fabric with tissue paper. Tissue paper adhered to the back of the fabric, which you can tell because it's covered in cat hair. That's terrifying. That's terrible. It's so bad. Anyway, this is Fourth Wing, but Zayden's point of view. I actually haven't read this one, and this one was typeset by someone in that fanfiction group that I'm in. Like, they had shared their typeset, so I used it. This was another one that I had binded for someone else, and it was one of the first times I was doing it, so I made one for myself before I made the one that I traded to them, because I wanted to get some practice in before I gave it to other people. Theirs is a lot better than mine. I'll put a picture up of how theirs turned out. Like, I made a nice dust cover for it, and I used better book cloth. Is this dry yet? Not even close. You're supposed to leave it in the press for a day. Hey, I can measure it. Oh, but this is the spine that I've already made. Let's see if it's the same size. I'm gonna just shove this in here. Hey, it's pretty close, you guys. This is a very scientific method of measuring. It's the next day, and my paperback should be ready to take out. So let's see if we can do this without ripping any of the pages. I tend to rip pages. This is going to be loud and clunky because I can't figure out a way to do this without being loud and clunky. I'm just going to take it all the way out. There are so many objects on my desk, all of which I need, especially this little guy. Okay, friends. Ah, like a dream. Okay. Carefully peel this off. It worked perfectly. So this is the first book. I made sure to double check all of my pages as I was splicing them together to make sure that they were all in the right order and in the right orientation. But I always get anxious when I check it again after I've glued it, and it looks like it's all right. So yes, this is now ready to be cased. There's a couple different ways I've done this before where I'll either print it on my printer, but my printer isn't the best quality, and I would like to keep it pretty close to this size without having to trim off a lot, and my printer is kind of small. I have some paper that's 8.5 by 17, I think, and I can feed that through and it'll give me enough of an overhang that I can wrap it with that. Or I've also done it where I will send my files to a printing place and have it get printed with like nicer paper than just regular cardstock, which is what I have. But you can also laminate your cardstock, and people like to do that. I haven't decided what I want to do yet because I have moved recently, so I no longer live by the printer that I used to go all the time. So now I have to find somewhere that will print it, and I also have to find someone who will trim my text blocks for me. I mean, you can tell these pages aren't completely perfect, you know, that's just what happens, especially when I'm cutting all of the pages in half by hand. You know, there's a margin of error there. And so you need to have someone with a paper guillotine trim the edges to make them nice and smooth. And I don't have an extra $300, $200 to buy a paper guillotine. They're also huge, and you can cut off your fingers. So I prefer not to risk any of that. So I need to find someone who will do it for me. Yeah, let's work on our next text block and see how it goes. I just wish I was better at making it nice and even, but I don't know how to do it perfectly even. Like, this is pretty good, but I don't know if you can see. Can you see that it's a little bit crooked? Like, the spine is like a little bit crooked. Anyway, this is much more floppy than my first one that I made, so I'm happy I redid it. Let's get started on book 2. Let's dive into my complicated history with fanfiction. I read a lot of fanfiction on Wattpad, and I wrote my own original stories on Wattpad in like middle school and high school. Like, I remember how fun it was to fiddle around with, like, the cover creator on there. And like I said earlier, it took me a long time to graduate from Wattpad to Archive of Our Own. It just felt very intimidating. There's a lot more content on Archive of Our Own, but also the way that the website is structured and the way that people publish their content there is different than how Wattpad is. Wattpad is, at least it was, I haven't been on Wattpad in a long time, but Wattpad was very user-friendly, very straightforward, and there's a steeper learning curve to participating on AO3. There's intense tagging systems, there's like a lot more etiquette that you have to learn on AO3 than what I thought Wattpad had, but maybe that's just because I was in middle school and I wasn't as aware in Wattpad when I used Wattpad, but who knows. And a fun fact about me is that there is currently 2 published fan fictions on Wattpad about me and one of my best friends in high school. It's still published. Because of that experience, I have the strong opinion of I don't think you should write fan fiction about real people. I think fan fiction should be about fictional people, and it feels like an incredible invasion in someone's privacy to make fan fiction about them if they are real. I went to high school in a super small town, so everybody knew each other, and for some reason, everybody in my, like, it started in middle school. They wanted me and this guy to date. Nothing ever came of the 2 of us other than a fantastic friendship that still is alive to this day. If you're watching this, hey, I don't know if you are, but maybe you'll click on this video because you know there's fan fiction that's been written about us. Hey, dude! We had shippers and everything. We had a ship name. I don't want to dox this person. You guys, it was crazy. And there weren't just the 2 fan fictions written. I think there were 4 written, but only 2 were put onto Wattpad. Because I had another friend who's a great writer, and they wrote like a really good one. They didn't finish it, none of them finished, but I think one of them has like a good 4 chapters, and the other has like 8 or 9 chapters. Like, my peers took time out of their lives to write fan fiction about me and one of my good friends. And what the? That's crazy. I still can't believe that. It's like a fun 2 truths and a lie for me to say that there's fan fiction written about me and you can find it. All of this is to say I don't like when people write fan fiction about real people because it made me uncomfortable, and I'm sure it made my friend uncomfortable too. There's just like, it's a lot. Maybe I should like look into the history of AO3 and then we can learn it together while I'm binding this fan fiction. Maybe I will do that actually. Pause. I'm going to put my stuff together. I'm going to start binding this one. Is it still called binding if it's just gluing it together? Like, I feel like the act of binding something together in a book sense requires sewing. Sorry if this is loud. It probably is. So I'm doing the double fan method followed up with a thermal binding. And the way that you do that is you get your papers to lie as flat as possible, as even as possible, and then you bind it in the book press with like 2 or 3 inches out of it, and then you bend the pages back, glue them, bend the pages the other way, glue them, and then you wiggle it down into the book press and smush it flat while it dries. That way you get glue on some of the interior. You know, it's not just the edge. I've double checked my pages here already. It should be all in order, but again, I get nervous every time I do this. So I'm going to tap these a billion times to get them as flat as possible. And, you know, because I hand cut them, they're not going to be flat perfectly, but that's why you trim the text block later. And while I do this, let's talk about the history of fan fiction. I have spent the last hour or so researching fanfiction. Most of my information came from fanlore.org and the AO3 and the AO3 Reddit page. There was also a particularly funny article from The Atlantic, but it was behind a paywall, so I didn't get to read it, and I don't want to pay for just one article. A lot of people ask, like, what is fan fiction? You know, and the classic definition is like a work of fiction written by someone who isn't the original creator using characters that aren't their own, you know? People believe that you can only write fan fiction if the material is copyrighted, which I thought was interesting, but I disagree with. I want it to be perfect. Looking into what defines fan fiction was really fascinating to me. A lot of people have different opinions. It's a very complex topic, especially currently. I am of the potentially controversial opinion that you could see New Testament as Old Testament fan fiction. You could see the Book of Mormon as the Bible fan fiction. People have been creating stories based on other stories a long time. And this led me to, like, what's the difference between fan fiction and derivative? I gotta put this on top. Something that's derivative is typically a piece of art that imitates another art or artist. So fan fiction is often derivative just by nature. It's kind of like a square, rectangle, rectangle, square thing where all fan fiction is derivative, but not everything that's derivative is technically fan fiction. Fascinating. I love etymology. Why do we make words the way they are? Speaking of words that are the way they are, while Arthur Conan Doyle and Jane Austen were writing, you know, Sherlock Holmes and Pride and Prejudice and Persuasion, a lot of people were writing works in the same style of those two authors, specifically in response to those two authors. During that time, people wrote what were called pastiches, I believe is how you say it. A pastiche is defined as an artistic work in a style that imitates that of another work, artist, or period. And this isn't just writing. This is also, it can be I was going to say poetry, but that's also writing. But this can also be painters or sculptors, you know, learning from another creator by imitating their creative style. And a lot of people did that with Sherlock and writing their own detective noirs or, you know, writing their own version of Persuasion. And I thought that was fascinating. I have never heard of that before. And some good examples of that, Gone with the Wind, a very popular book, had a sequel written by a separate author, and the book was named Scarlet, but that was approved by the author. So it's like, is it still fan fiction? Is it even part of the same series? Because it kind of seemed like, it felt like fan fiction. It just picked up where it left off and was written by a whole other person. Like, what? I love that. This brings me to, like, when did fan fiction start? I think we've been writing things adjacent to fan fiction for a very long time. And it's just natural. You hear something you like, you want to recreate that same kind of thing in your own style. Or you take in media and you dissect it to see how you could have made it better, how you would have made it different. I think that's very human to, you know, hear a story and then create it into your own. And I don't mean plagiarizing, that's bad. I mean, like, oral traditions of histories and folk tales that were passed down from generation to generation, and they molded and shaped by each storyteller. I think that's innately human to yearn for that connection and that communication. So we've been doing this for a long time. I found a couple specific examples, one of which was Gulliver's Travels, which was written in 1726, and a lot of people wrote their own version of Gulliver's Travels, where things that were mentioned offhand in the book, people picked it up and then wrote their account of that offhand mention. That's fan fiction! That's literally fan fiction! How cool is that? I wanted to learn more about this, but this was the article that was behind a paywall, so we'll never know. If you have a subscription to The Atlantic, please read this article for me or send screenshots of the article. I guess I shouldn't condone piracy, so maybe don't. But also, it's Gulliver's Travels, so maybe I should condone piracy. Pirates? More modern versions of fan fiction started with, do you want to guess? Did you guess? If you guessed Star Trek, you'd be correct. In the 1960s, a lot of people created fanzines, fan magazines, for Star Trek specifically. I have been a part of a fanzine before. It's so fun to create and collaborate your own material for something that you love. And it's cool to see, like, other people have done that before me. Humanity yearns to create, you know? I think that's beautiful. It yearns to create and to share. And so there's this woman named Dorothy who's trying to share something that she created, a fan fiction about Star Trek. And she writes the creator of Star Trek himself and asks if she can publish it. To which he responds, "Dear Dorothy, no one needs permission to publish a fanzine about Star Trek." And you can see the original letter that she received from him, and it's just so darling and cute. And I thought that was so fun, of the original creator being like, yeah. And she was sure to state in her request, like, I'm not making money off of this. This is just a fan work for me to share with other people who are fans of your work. I will be making no money from this. Please, can I share it with people? And he said, sounds sick as hell. Which is a direct contrast to what happened to a lot of the people who wrote fan fiction for Star Wars in the 1980s. And Lucasfilms released a cease and desist themselves, begging people to stop creating explicit content for Star Wars. They do not condone that kind of behavior. What a hilarious shift to go from the creator of Star Trek being like, yeah, okay, and then Lucasfilms being like, no, Han Solo does not get it. I don't want you to think about anything this way. Leave your dirty minds out of Star Wars. In 1981, that's when that happened. It's one of the first, I think, I don't know, maybe I could be wrong, you guys. This is just what I learned in the last couple hours, so I could be incorrect. But 1981 is one of the first cease and desists that fan fiction authors get as a whole. And Lucasfilms even says in their missive, they're like, if you know who is responsible for this, send them our way. They're like, tattle on your fellow creators if you're writing explicit content about nerds. In the 1990s, people created what are called geo sites. They were websites dedicated to hosting fan content and fan material. And there were some generic, well, there were a lot. Some for generic anime fan fiction, or sometimes authors would make one for just all of their works themselves. And all of these would be out-of-pocket expenses for the artists and the fans. Not everybody could afford to do their own, host their own website. These websites were another great way for people to get fan content and fan fiction accessible to a lot of people. It didn't host everything. So someone might like one website, but that wouldn't be a website for everybody. In 1998 of October, fanfiction.net is created by Xing Li. This is believed to be the first multi-fandom website based to host fanfiction specifically. That's huge. That's pretty huge. I mean, that in itself allowed for a lot more foot traffic into that website. It was a spot known very widely for fanish spaces in the 2000s. And so let's go through some of the history of fanfiction.net. And, there's a lot out there for fanfiction, you guys. I can't get into all of it, but I will get into some of it. Okay, some of the perks of fanfiction.net were browsing and filtering fanfictions by rating, language, genre, chapters, reviews, favorites, and then pairings was added, but not until 2013. The fanfiction was split by chapters. You couldn't read the whole fanfic at once. There also was no highlighting on the website, which was used to prevent plagiarism, but it did make it more difficult for people to download fan fictions, like all at once. You know, you wanted to put them on your browser to keep them safe in case something happened. This is how you do it. This is the technical method. Okay. You could have favorites and authors, and they also had a reviewing system. You could review your fan fictions, and authors could respond to you via private message if they wanted to. That was really cool. And authors also had a stats page so that they could see who's reading, how much they're reading, blah, 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 blah. There was also a public message board system, and they had like a dictionary in there and beta reading services. Created in 1998, there were 2 major purges that happened on fanfiction.net. Both of them are regarding the same content material. I don't think they had any tagging system, but they had filtering systems. So you couldn't tag what kind of specific content was in your fanfic to be searched by that tag. Because of that, authors would promote their content or describe their content in a way that hopefully would make it easy for viewers to understand what they were getting into. But there were a lot of minors on the website, so that led to a lot of explicit content being easily available to minors, which is not great, and as a business, you would want to change that and protect the children, which is what fanfiction.net tried to do. In 2002, they released an announcement about the NC-17 purge. It purged adult content to protect minors on the website. Their statement was saying they allow fiction from fiction K to fiction M, but not fiction MA. So any sort of mature content they didn't want easily available. When fanfiction.net released this announcement, a lot of users were really upset because they started taking down content just because they thought it was too much, too adult, and they would just remove content. So this led to a bunch of petitions being made. A lot of fans were signing it and being like, don't take away our content. Like, this sucks. And a lot of it was because fanfiction.net didn't have a really great tagging system. If they had that tagging system or warnings in place, then maybe they could have avoided that. But, you know, they were making something new for the first time. It happened again in 2012, and admins just began deleting stories, including all of their reviews, all of the comments, all of the favorites, and they ended up deleting around 62,000 stories. That's a lot of work. Because of this purge, especially the second one that happened in 2012, a lot of users abandoned fanfiction.net and moved over to Archive of Our Own. Whoa, that's a lot of glue. We are going to leave this to dry. 2 out of 3 ready to be drying. And this means I can measure the spine and create the cover, which is good. So there were a lot of other fanfiction websites during these times. There's one called LiveJournal. There were those geo sites. Like, there's a lot I'm not covering. If you want to learn more about it, you can learn more about it at fanlore.org. That was a really cool website that I found. And that's kind of a wrap on what I learned about fanfiction.net. This leads us to Archive of Our Own, or AO3. It's also called AO3 because it's Archive of Our Own, and there's 3 O's. So that's why it's AO3. It was created by fans and for fans, which was kind of the most important part of Archive of Our Own from my perspective. It was sparked in its creation because a lot of corporations were trying to make money or make profit off of fanfiction websites and hosting fanfiction. So the fans were like, bro, screw this. We can make it by ourselves if we band together and find a whole bunch of people who have different skill sets to create something of our own. And they did just that. The idea was sparked originally by a post from Asalat, and this was in May of 2007. It was in response to corporations trying to profit off of fandoms, and right before this, that other fanfiction website called LiveJournal did a bunch of strike through and bold through, where they again removed accounts and content that was deemed too mature. So fans were like, we got to build something that we can control and we can create by ourselves. In 2007, they registered the domain name archiveofourown.org, and in 2008, they opened a closed beta for readers after they collaborated with different coders, different people with other skill sets to help format and create the website and, build the servers that host the website and create the tagging system, everything. It was pretty amazing. In 2009, they opened the beta from a closed beta to an open beta. The open beta was a first come, first serve and an invitation queue. For a while, it stayed kind of closed with just small amounts of people while they built up the website, built up the fandom of themselves. After a Yuletide event, which from my understanding, the Yuletide event is basically a Secret Santa, but with writing fanfics for each other, cute as hell. Every person who participated in the Yuletide event received an invitation to send to someone else to join. At this time, AO3 expanded to 4,648 fandoms, 33,810 works, and 4,127 users. So this was only 2 years after the idea started. Like, that is amazing, all that growth. Throughout the years, they added kudos, which is a way to commend or super like a fanfic, but you can only like it once. And it's just a way to tell authors like, hey, I really enjoyed this, keep going. They introduced ways to subscribe to authors. At the end of 2016, they reached 1 million users, 2.6 million works spread across 22,970 fandoms. Then it just keeps going. It just keeps growing and growing and growing. More people join, more writers start writing, more fandoms are reached, more upgrades are given, new servers are added, they just keep expanding. And then we get to 2023 and generative AI is introduced to the world.
Oh no!
Barf. Am I right? And one of the people, I'm not entirely sure what their role was, they posted something that implied that they were okay with AI scraping their fandom's databases. And everybody was like, whoa, 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 what? You cannot use my fanfiction to train AI. That's bullshit. This launches a lot of discourse online on the website itself, on Reddit, on Discord servers, I'm sure. They're out there. It launches a lot of talk about AI usage, data scraping, AI bots, and, people even using AI to publish fanfiction, which I just don't get. I don't get using AI at all. But why would you use AI to write a fanfiction? Overwhelmingly, users hate the use of AI, and Archive of Our Own, the organization that helped build it, the Organization for Transformative Works, they released a statement saying, we do not agree with that person, we will protect our users, protect our content, and they've put in a lot of things to help prevent AI from scraping AO3. The current statistics for AO3 are over 7 million works, over 10 million users, and over 77,000 fandoms across the whole website. That's amazing. Everybody's like, there's a fanfiction for everything, and you know what? They're pretty much right. They're pretty much right about that. There are so many creative people out there who make things up. And, there's that funny meme of if there's a screen, there's a way, where people use any sort of device that has a screen to access Archive of Our Own, and I just think it's really funny. Let's go through some of the perks from AO3. The biggest thing that sets AO3 apart from other fanfiction hosting websites is that they allow controversial content. The archive boasts its ability to host for any and all types of fan work, and this means like taboo subjects, controversial things, dark things, like you can write anything on AO3. And that's why a lot of users flock to it after other hosting websites strike through content or remove content if it's deemed unsuitable. It primarily hosts text-based fanfiction, but it also allows for video and image embedding, but not hosting. They have in-depth and built-in bookmarking systems. You can read chapter by chapter or by the whole work all at once, which there's pros and cons to both. I get scared reading an entire work at once, because what if you accidentally lose the page or you accidentally refresh it and then you're right smack dab at the top, and I'm like, also have the feature to orphan a work, which is where an author can remove their name from the work, so it's still out there but not necessarily tied to them. There are collections and writing challenges that you can participate in. You can also bind together separate fan works as series. You can also have a pseudo author name on there, so you can write multiple works but under different names but still being linked to the same account. And you can also lock fanfics for registered users only. There's quite a few creators out there that want to limit their fanfictions to just people who have a registered confirmed AO3 account, and that limits guests from getting to see it and hopefully limits the amounts of bots that get to it too. Speaking of bots, let's have a tangent about bots. There are so many bots on AO3. I am shocked and confused by how many there are. There's like just general harassment bots. I learned recently about stalker bots, where they are meant to scare you into thinking you're being stalked so that you'll take your content down. There's a lot out there, you guys. But the final and biggest perk of AO3, in my opinion, is their diverse tagging system. Let's hear it for the tagging system on AO3. Don't you dare tag anything incorrectly or they will eat you alive. There's a lot of people who get frustrated when something isn't tagged necessarily, and when people tag something that isn't there, or worse, put in intense content and don't tag the intense content. They even have a tag wrangler team that helps combine tags that are like-minded. There is even fanfiction written about the wrangler team, and it's called Wrangulator, and it's in the Wrangulator verse. That's amazing. What? People love AO3 so much, they wrote fanfics about the tagging coding system that they use in the website. Like, it's like the meme of like how to say I love you in 100,000 words, and it's the Wrangulator verse fanfic. That's kind of my big info dump. Thank you fanlore.org. Thank you to AO3 Reddit. Thank you to the Organization for Transformative Works. Thank you, Archive of Our Own. I'm gonna keep working on these. I'm gonna start working on the cover for this one now that I know how wide the spine will be. And I will glue the other book tomorrow because this needs to dry. We have our text box. I designed our covers for all three. We have the boy with the bread, the pearl, and the dandelion in spring. This one's my favorite. I really like how this one turned out. The next step requires a lot of measuring, a pencil and a bone folder. I love this thing so much. It just makes your edges nice and crisp when you're folding your bookcase. I gotta make sure I'm putting the right ones with the right covers, because that would be bad if I put the wrong text block in. So we're gonna put these ones away, and we're gonna start with the first one. We just have to measure where I need to fold these. It's really pretty simple, you know? On the spine, I have a little bit of a decal right here that hugs the spine, so I'm just gonna mark that on the opposite side so that I know, oh wait, that's not even, y'all, I don't even know what I'm doing. Let's find the middle of this. That's our first step. While I've been filming this video, some big news in the fanfiction sphere has dropped. And that big news is a rumor that a very popular Harry Potter fanfiction has been picked up by a traditional publisher. It's supposedly All the Young Dudes, which is a Wolfstar fanfiction that is incredibly popular. Like, we're talking like 20 billion hits on AO3. That author supposedly has received a book deal that is rumored to be 2.5 million euros. That's crazy. And a lot of people are upset about it. I saw a lot of people on threads talking about how fanfiction needs to stop being rewarded. Like, fanfiction writers are awful at writing fanfiction, and if we keep publishing them, what will happen next? And, you know, I hate to break it to you guys, but there are bad authors everywhere. It is not exclusive to fanfiction. It doesn't matter. Like, you're going to find bad artists in every artistic sphere, which maybe that's hateful and crazy of me to say, but it's true. And I don't know why fanfiction gets beat up so much. Like, it really makes me sad. I think good on them You know, they worked hard on that story, and if they want to change some elements and publish it themselves, then go for it. Also, what better way to stick it to J.K. Rowling than to publish queer literature? Like, you guys, you need to calm down about fanfiction. And, you know, everybody's upset about this, but they don't care about Heated Rivalry. Heated Rivalry started as Captain America and Bucky Barnes fanfiction, you guys. What's the difference? What's the difference? 50 Shades of Grey is Twilight fanfiction, and it's incredibly popular. There are so many things. It doesn't matter. Let people write the stories they want to write. I don't know. I can't do math. My research is also by no means exhaustive. You know, I just thought it was cool to learn about. And it was cool to learn about. I really enjoyed it. I just think it's important that you let people be creative, you know? And if it's not your cup of tea, then simply don't purchase the book. It's really that simple. A lot of people forget that you can just click away, you know? I'm proud of that author for putting all the work in and wanting to experience some rewards for that work. People obviously loved her story, so get it. And I do understand, like, from a fan's perspective, if you're sad to see all the young dudes go, or, you know, you don't want that fan space to be interrupted or taken over by traditional publishing. I really empathize with that. That makes sense. But the second people start saying, oh, fanfiction is bad writing and bad authors and nothing fanfiction should be published, that's where you lose me. They obviously have never read fanfiction, because I've read a lot of fanfiction that's really fantastic. Oh yeah, that was nice. It's also good to remeasure and double measure everything, because my printer did not print this centered. So if I had just gone it on the measurement of the white paper, it would have been off, but I went based on the design on the front, and that definitely helps. You do these folds, but then you do an additional fold for the hinge that lets it open a little bit more. So I'm going to do that as well. Like, the people who are saying fanfiction is bad obviously aren't in the fanfiction space, so leave us alone. You know what I mean? That author wouldn't have sought out a traditional publishing deal if they didn't think they deserved it, or that their manuscript wasn't ready. You know, they did it for a reason. There's like some parasocial aspect between fans and authors where fans think that they own the author's work. You don't. If you're unhappy about it, then again, don't buy the book. Should I just eyeball this one? Is that too brave? We're doing it. This just allows the book to open on a seam a little bit more easily, and it helps prevent damage. Even though it looks like I'm damaging it right now. I have my little glue strips here. And you just place these in along the spine and then stick it in the binder and glue it down. I haven't ever done this before, so I'm really excited to try this new tool out and see if it is good. Okay, you guys, you gotta also double check that you're putting your text block in the correct way. You wanna make sure it's in the right orientation, otherwise you'll be so sad for the rest of your life. This is kind of the perfect width. I'm so anxious I'm gonna destroy all of my hard work. Well, if it does, we'll be fine, because this is our book that we're doing for a second time. Yay, a nice snug fit. It only took me like 2 weeks to finish this. Maybe not quite 2 weeks, but at least 1 full week and a couple of days. I ended up checking out my library to see if they could trim my text block, but they didn't have a guillotine, which makes sense because they're pretty heavy duty and dangerous. But I did find out that the UPS near me will trim your text blocks for like $5 a text block. So they trimmed my text block for me. Thank you to UPS. The guy who did it was so careful and trying to make it the exact right spot. Like, I was so grateful because it's kind of scary to hand over your finished fan fiction to a stranger and be like, hey, could you trim like less than 1/4 of an inch off of 3 of the 4 sides? Please don't mess it up. But he did fantastic. This is what they look like. Their blade definitely needs to get sharpened because you can see like these registration marks on all of the sides. He did a good job at trimming them. Like, they're pretty close to the same size. This one's a little bit smaller, but that's okay. Like, they even fit nicely with the originals. Like, that's pretty dang good. I'm very impressed. That brings us to the end. We have successfully bound 3 fanfics this week. I am really happy with how they turned out. I really like them. I'm happy to have physical copies. There's a little bit of like tearing on the edges just because of the blades, but I don't mind too much. You know, there's always imperfections in things, but the thermal binding worked great. The double fan method worked great. They feel very sturdy. The guy who was trimming these was worried he wouldn't be able to fit this one. This was like the exact limit of their guillotine. But he did it for us. He did it for the fans. Maybe who knows, maybe he's a closeted AO3 fanfic writer. And he's like, I've read these. I will cherish and take care of your treasures. Who knows? That's the story that I choose to believe. So thank you, UPS worker. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you guys had fun and learned something. I will likely be doing a hardcover fanfiction video sometime. I have a couple of longer ones that I love that I would really like to bind into hardcover copies, and it's a bit different of a process, so let me know if you want to watch that. And I hope you read some fanfiction today. Bye-bye!